Maaliwalas na araw to all our viewers. This is Ami Montaño and welcome to our episode entitled Psychology of Stress. Joining us in our today's session is Miss Candy Mauricio. She's a certified management consultant, a certified solution-focused practitioner, a certified mental health first responder, a certified appreciative inquiry practitioner and researcher, a licensed guidance counselor and psychometrician. She is also a katatagan facilitator, an EMDR trained psychotherapist, an ICF trained well-being coach, IEMT certified practitioner, and of course, a co-founder of Mindwell Managing Director of CML Center for Mastery and Lifelong Learning. Maaliwalas na araw, Miss Candy!
Maaliwalas na araw, Ma'am Amy!
We are so happy to have you today. So can you tell us more about the psychology of stress?
Yes, so thank you very much for inviting me. I wanted to talk about the psychology of stress, especially right now that in this course of continuing pandemic, we need to make sure that we're not only physically healthy so that we can boost our immune system and we know that we can fight the virus, but also really take care of our mental health. However, we would need to understand first so that we can take care of it. What does mental health really mean? So, according to the World Health Organization, you know that you have a good mental health condition when you can cope with the daily stresses of life and get to realize your potentials and your abilities as you do your daily routines. This includes feeling that your work is actually productive and fruitful and adding value to the community. Now, the uniqueness though in our mental health law here in the Philippines is that it added another definition or characteristic of what mental health in the Philippine setting is or for Filipinos. And this is the display of resilience in extreme life events. And definitely this COVID-19 is an extreme life event as it had taken a lot of lives of people. It's no longer a statistics for us, but actually names that we hold dear. So I thought that this topic would be relevant to have a bright morning despite this
Yes.
pandemic.
Well,
Yes.
that's good, yes, because right now, one of the current issue is to move forward with regards to vaccine.
Yes, and I think this is also causing us a lot of stress because we don't know. Are we supposed to take it or not? What are the things that
Yes.
we need to do? And definitely, this is part of what we call the psychology of stress, wherein stress actually comes out because we feel that the pressure that we are facing or is upon us is actually greater than the resources that we have. And when we talk about these resources, this includes not only our personality or our coping skills, but definitely our support systems. And these support systems include not only the internal resources or even the people that we are close to, but really going out of our way. And this means that we know that we have a choice. You see, Miss Amy, the challenge with us is when we talk about stress, we only see it as the fight or flight, right?
Yes, yes, it's
Yes.
true.
So it's like we only have two options. Either we face it or we avoid it, right? And as we know, part of psychology of empowerment as well, if you only have two choices, it's not really a choice.
Yes.
So, I'd like to discuss how this stress actually has a journey and that we have choices on how we face this stress. Now,
Yes, you may. Yes, you may share our viewers.
yes. So, as we have discussed earlier, stress is a pressure that is something that we face. Now, when we talk about stress, it's also, we all know that it's also not always bad. So, there's what we call the eustress, wherein these are the stress that, for example, we need to take our food, for example, and it's not the food that we like. So we're kind of having hesitation on these, right? But we know
Yes.
that we would need to eat it, and therefore we eat it anyway because we know how to eat anyway. We know how to chew and swallow and all that, right? And that is because we see that the result of it is positive. So these are events that we know makes us a better person in the end. Now, there are also stresses that we feel we just need to wait, no, or find time to let it simmer, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, so these are those times when we know that it's not within our control, and somehow we park it. That's how we call it at times. And of course, there's what we call the distress, and that's what we want to address in this short session that we have, or short brief conversation that we have, wherein this distress can actually progress to a crisis or a trauma when it is not processed, or when there are no resources that was made available. And moving forward to this, I would like to share that there are choices. As we know, Miss Amy, there, from this stress that we feel, there's a threat or there's a fright,
Mhm.
and we get scared because we see that, hey, my resources might not be enough to face this challenge successfully. So the first two choices that we always see is that, okay, I can face this, I can fight this, or I need to avoid it, or I would have to flight, right? And then there are times that we feel we would procrastinate or we freeze, but that is not really a choice that we make. In fact, we would have clients that would say, I would need to see my mental, get diagnosed of a mental health condition because I always procrastinate. But procrastinating or that freezing is not actually a voluntary action. It is done by our unconscious when we feel that there is something that we are waiting on, or we are trying to also explore. So that is where the other option of friends or possibilities, wherein when we look into the fight or flight, it's actually looking into the resources that are within our reach, something that we have used in the past, something that we are familiar of, or we are secure that once I do this, I know that it's going to give me the result that I want, a favorable result. Now, the friends is actually exploring outside these resources that we have that are external. So, when we talk about the support systems that may be internal and external, as long as it's something that's familiar with us, it's still part of the fight or flight thinking process. But if it's something like generating something new, or finding a possibility or the opportunities outside this crisis, it's really looking at finding friends. And when we talk about friends, these are not just individuals. This could be our environment. These could be the systems that we have around us, the best practices of other people that they share with us that we were not originally comfortable with or even familiar of. This is really what would open up and would create our coping skills that can help us move forward with this much unfamiliarity. Yes,
Yes, so thank you so much for sharing that. So, from this, we've learned that there are different ways that a person may respond to
yes,
different
correct.
kinds of situation. So, you've mentioned about different resources. What are other additional resources that you can share to our viewers?
Yeah, so I'd like to share some examples of resources. When we talk about resources, first, when we say we would have possibilities, to start with, there are actually free doctors, and there are seven of them. You know, before we
Okay.
would always talk about professional help in
Yes.
mental health, but there's actually seven doctors that are actually free, and they have different specializations. Interestingly, this is what we call the seven doctors that we can easily reach out to, and that would be the sun, the water, the air, the energy that we nurture within ourselves, the diet that we eat, the exercise, and the sleep. So, how does this work? for the sun, it would be beneficial for us not only just to get the vitamin A that we need from the sunlight, but really to stretch out, especially right now that we are always stuck at home or that we are forced to go out and from the comforts of our home, but still very much in the cautious mode. So it's more of really feeling the energy or the warmth of the sunlight, right? Just as like our program, Maliwalas na Araw, the sun is bright and we would need to share its brightness not only to brighten our day, but to brighten our life and to brighten our mental health. And then definitely the next is what is inside us. Majority of us majority of our body, we are composed of 70% of water. So we need to make sure that we are hydrated, and this means drinking at least what we call eight glasses or 1 liter. But that also means right now, because we're stressed or there's a lot of air, quote unquote, virus in the air that we are trying to prevent, we may need to drink more than that. So what we are advising right now or suggesting or actually sharing is that a half glass of water every 30 minutes would actually help us, right? And then next would be the air. So when we talk about breathing the air without the mask, it's also having that fresh air. That means not only staying inside the air conditioned room the whole day, right? But also going out to a place that's not air conditioned that would help us sweat, and that brings us to the energy and the exercise. So when we talk about energy, this really, by evidence based, it reduces the risk of depression simply because we are always moving, or it makes us move. It changes the state of our mood. And the exercise, it makes us sweat and therefore brings out the toxics, no, the toxics from our body. And these toxics are somehow we get that as an intake from the food that we eat, like junk food, especially when we are on a Netflix marathon.
Yes.
And this Netflix marathon will now bring us to lack of sleep. That we would need to have at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep for adults. And it's very important just to share that we get these this amount of sleep because it can be torturous for us. In fact, in the early days, sleep deprivation is one of the types of torture, because when you don't have sleep, just like in the research where there are the puppies that they don't let them sleep, and then after 10 days they die. So we can imagine that for us, a number of days that we don't have sleep, we see ourselves that we are very irritable. We try to always eat, or we're craving for something. We're restless that we don't know what it is, because simply because we haven't gotten enough rest, right? Now, and in today, if I may, Miss Amy, seeing that the sun, the water, the all of
Yes.
the rest is not something that I can do for our viewers, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
I'd like to share a simple exercise that may take them from a minute to 4 minutes or so, depending on how much they would like to do it on a prolonged period of time. At the most, probably would be around 5 minutes. But this is a simple exercise that they can do anywhere to help them manage and be able to get much air, uh, revitalize their energy, and even have some sweat if it would actually uh, get them there,
Yes.
as if they would do that. And it's very a simple exercise. It's really more of just using our hands and our legs. So first is really just raising your hand and shaking it. So I call this the shake it off. And you can even use
Okay.
the shake it off of Taylor Smith, or shake it off of Mariah Carey, depending on what would be most suitable for you as you do this.
So they can choose whether it's right hand or left hand?
Yes, yes. And
It
then
can
the
be
left
just one or two?
two, yes. So
That's
first would be the left or right, and then the
okay.
other one.
The other one, yes.
Yes. And then they can do both.
Both? Okay.
Yes. And
Just
then they
like
can do
this.
they can stand, so I can stand and
Okay.
I can stand, and then while they're either shaking it, they can also do the left feet while they're shaking, and then the right.
Ah, okay.
So as they shake, you can hear it. There are cracks that will happen. So when they're doing the shaking and they're feeling the cracking of their ankles, their wrists, or even their shoulders, because they would feel that it's
Yes.
actually moving the muscle and releasing the tension, right? And before we do that, we can also we can also ask them to please comment what would be the tension on the first part. As before they do this, they can check, and then as they after they have shake it off from their left and right hands and left and right leg for a couple of counts,
Mhm.
maybe even 10 to 20 counts. They can try to feel their body and how will they rate their tension after their exercise. I'd like to invite them to comment in our comment box in our uh, view for this channel. So
Yes. So
yeah,
it's important. So before they're going to share before and also after the activity, the
yeah.
exercise. Do
How
you
did
have
it?
a name? Do you have a name for this particular exercise? So that our viewers can can remember or can recall what they call it.
Yes, in Filipino we call it pagpag.
Pagpag, yes,
Yes,
shaking it off.
yes, and
So it's like it's
English
also
really
like
shaking.
releasing all the tension.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So it's really simple. In fact, most of us have
Yes.
done this in our PE class, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I meant. We don't need to look into so much highfalutin mental health exercise with all the frameworks and the certifications and all that on exercises, but really the foundation of what needs to happen to our body, just
Mhm.
like the specializations of these seven doctors that we
Yes.
just discussed, wherein we can integrate what is inside us that makes us nurture life.
And
Yes.
which is good because sometimes we're looking for something that can help us, and it's good. It's free. It's something
Yes,
within our environment that we can adapt. Okay.
yes, yes. And it's very accessible because they can do it, and it can readily help them soothe themselves, especially that right now I bet there's a lot of bottled emotions that our viewers would have. And do you know that these bottled emotions are actually stored in every part of our body? There are different uh, expressions from our muscles that shows how much these tensions are actually representation of the emotions that we are not able to express. No? Example. Would you want me to share some examples?
Yes, can you share to our viewers some what we call morning signs that
Yes.
they need to watch out so that they
Yes.
can be familiar with it?
Okay.
Sure. Yes. 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 You may.
So early warning signs, of course, would be from our state would be first you're not able to sleep even when you want to try to sleep, right? And then you don't have appetite for food, or that could also lead you to drastically lose weight. And then the changes in the mood. Now, alongside with these changes in your mood, you get to feel all the tension that resides in parts of our body. For example, would be on our shoulder. So the shoulder tensions could literally be burdens or responsibilities. For example, you may have lost work, or there could be financial impact because of the pandemic, and then suddenly your shoulders are more tense than usual. So these are some examples. The other part could be the neck. So neck tension. So you can think about, I'm no longer driving that much, but my neck tension is still there. it,
Yes. Yes.
yes. So it could be a repressed self-expression, that for so long you haven't done something that you really like doing, like probably painting, or even just uh, washing your dog's cage, something like that, right? And then at the part of our back, so it's actually the upper back, the lower, and the middle. It has different emotions that is being stored in it. So for the upper back, it's really the sorrow, the grief, or the sadness of a loss, not only of job, but probably people that we know, or even just the familiarity of how our daily lives used to be, or even the staycations that we miss there.
Yes,
Could
because
be,
of this ECQ. Yes.
yes, yes. And then the middle back would be our insecurity, or the feeling of powerlessness. So this could be those times when we feel that we need to like crack our back, and it leads us to think, why is this always happening? Probably there are things that you feel that you don't have options, or you don't have a choice, but you just need to do, right? Now, at the lower part, the lower back, it's not only because we feel that we have a bad posture. It could also mean that there could be some shame, some guilt, some feeling of unworthiness, that we are not enough, that makes us feel these tensions. Now, of course, the stomach, that's something that is very natural for us to feel every time that we have anxiety, or some emotions that we are not able to process in our mind. Like when we are so stressed, and then we have either diarrhea, or we have some upset stomach, ulcer, for example. Yes, this could be because of those emotions that are not being processed. So it's our inability. Now, this is where it gets also quite interesting, because even our buttocks, for example, it can actually be tense, and this could be those anger or rage that we are not able to express, and our thighs. If we are not even exercising, and then you wonder, why is my thighs so tense? I'm not even doing the squats, or doing some
Yes.
push-ups, or those activities. The outer thigh is really the impatience or the frustration of some particular situation or life event. And the inner thigh, now this is where it's quite tricky. It's the fear of vulnerability, or there could be a betrayal. And when we talk about betrayal, this is not just about relationship. This could be people that had expectations. You had expectation from these people that were not met. So it's not only just the loyalty in relationship, but also obligations or agreements that you are not able to fulfill, or you were not they did not fulfill it, or you did not fulfill it. So that kind of emotions, which is really quite interesting, if you'd ask me, that somehow these emotions, when it's stored in our body, and we don't really talk about it, a part of us is actually talking to us about it, to ourselves about it as well.
So it is important that we listen to our body, because
Yes,
it can show us how are we feeling at this time. So I understand that yeah, there are different kinds of warning signs that we can look into. But as a professional, how do we know if we need to seek help? And at the same time, as the co-founder of Mindwell, what are you doing to help people to cope up with the stress that they are experiencing at this time?
yes. So, right now, just to also share what Mindwell is. Mindwell, actually, our goal is to provide accessible, complete, quality mental health care and support services. So when we talk about complete, it's from you being a healthy person, and you need to promote and prevent yourself from being at risk, to if you already have mental health conditions that you want to have some care management plan, so you can manage it, because you can still have a very fruitful, a very good well-being, even when you have a mental health condition. So for people who are in the healthy mode, where they can focus on the task at hand, and they can still look into their problems and face it and use their coping, we have our trainings, we have our learning sessions that we just completed our women empowerment forum. So we were sharing. We had resource coaches, well-being coaches who are also ICF calibered coaches, who were able to share with the community how they have helped clients, and actually did on during, it's an exclusive event, so they actually coach people in our breakout rooms and all that. And then for those who are feeling some reactions or already reacting to the demands or the stresses of life, we help them move forward and identify, recognize their limits, be able to get their adequate resources intact, be able to go through that. And we do that through our helpline. We have a dedicated helpline for our um, mental health care club members, and we also have that helpline for our community partners like the SWD, DOH, and then DepEd, who and of course mental health first response team for those that you would be needing our collaboration with. We have and this is moving forward with those who feel that they would need a higher level of care or for professional help. So when we talk about professional help, it also comes in one-on-one sessions, or also for our group counseling or group therapies that we provide for the community of specific or who would have focused goals that they would like to have an assistance or support to empower them to move forward with it. So when they seek help with us, they can have they do have choices after we do our psych consultations with them, either a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a counselor, or even a psychotherapist. We do help them be able to access these caliber professionals. So that's where the completeness happens, from groups to individuals of different settings as well, work. We have the school settings as well. Have partnered with them, and of course the communities, even parishes there. And then for the completeness of it, up to the psychiatric care services.
Thank you very much, Miss Candy. We truly appreciate the things that you have shared with us today. So, to our dear viewers, let us not forget the concept that Miss Candy shared with us. Of course, very important. There are 7 free doctors that we can avail that she mentioned. And then she also mentioned about different responses, which she coined as the 6F, which now includes, of course, friends, also our family, our environment, and how are we supposed to respond. And in terms of seeking professional help, there are available resources such as Mindwell. They do have different packages or different approaches that are easily available. So for any questions or any inquiries, we're going to post their contact information and you can reach them. So thank you so much, Miss Candy.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward seeing you again in our next succeeding episode. And to our dear viewers, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward seeing you in our next session. Maaliwalas na araw! Thank you and goodbye!